Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Meeting Place Church. My name is Peter. I'm the youth pastor here at the Meeting Place Church, and wherever you're streaming from this morning, we are stoked to be able to spend some time with you. Before we get into this morning's message, I'm going to take this opportunity right now to insert a shameless plug. Okay, you ready? All right, so here at the Meeting Place Church, I've had the privilege of being the youth pastor here since about 2015. And at TMP, our youth group is called The City. And at The City, it's our mission to welcome all youth to experience a life transformed by God's love. And the main way we do that, one of the main ways we do that is by connecting youth with caring adults who are willing to be leaders for them over the years and invest in them so they can learn to seek and shine God's love. And over the years, thanks to the work of lots of amazing volunteers, we've been able to see this mission realized in many youth right here in Nanaimo. And right now, we're in the process of building the team who is going to make September 2021 the start of another awesome year at the city. So if you have a passion for seeing youth experience the fullness of life that can be found in relationship with Jesus, and you're looking for a way to make that happen, shoot me an email, peter@themeetingplace.org, because I would love to sit down with you and talk about how we can make that happen and see a difference be made in the lives of youth right here in Nanaimo. Okay, shameless plug done. This morning, like Russ said, we're continuing along in our series called Bad Words, where we're looking at words from the Bible that don't get a lot of airtime because they seem negative and can make us feel bad or at least uncomfortable. And so we tend not to talk about them, and they quietly slip onto our list of taboo topics along with politics, religion, and our opinions on Bitcoin. So that's why, over this series, we're tackling a few of these words head on with the hope that we will discover that these bad words are actually pretty awesome. And they can help us discover how we can live a life more fully experiencing the love of God and extending this love to others. So recently, I read an article by author and pastor Carey Nieuwhof. And the article was called Three Things Christians Do That Non-Christians Hate. Now, when I saw that title, one particular characteristic popped to mind, and I wonder if it was the same one for you. I'll give you a hint, it's not our bumper stickers. If you're watching on online church right now, throw your answer in the chat. What do you think that characteristic was? I'll give you a few seconds to put it in there. 3, 2, 1. If you said judgment, you're right. Judgment was the first thing mentioned that Christians do that non-Christians can't stand, that they hate. And I get it. If what they mean by judgment is someone unloading their unwanted opinions on you about your choices or beliefs, or superficially deciding what kind of person you are before taking the time to get to know you, then I agree with the non-Christians who responded to this interview. I hate it when people judge me like that. I hate it when people do me like that. From experience, I can say that it is super frustrating and even hurtful. I've experienced this kind of judgment from time to time when I meet a new group of people and I get asked what I do for work. Every time this question inevitably comes up, my anxiety level, it rises a little bit because I have no idea what they think about Christians, about God, or the church. And I get anxious as soon as I tell them I'm a youth pastor because I'm afraid that I'll be prejudged as judgmental. Usually, though, people are pretty okay with it, and they just say, cool. But there have also been times where as soon as I tell someone I'm a youth pastor and that I work at a church, that I feel the mood change and I feel walls go up. And honestly, in light of this article that I read, it's understandable. Maybe like some of the non-Christians from this interview, the people that I'm meeting have had a really lousy experience with church and Christians. But still, the feeling that someone has judged me before getting to know me stings a little bit. And I'm sure you can remember a time where you felt this same sting of judgment. And I wonder if it's this sting that is the reason why it seems that right now, more than any other time in history, we find ourselves living in a culture that is hypersensitive to any kind of judgment. So much so that one of our culture's primary ethos is that everyone should do whatever feels right for them, and everyone else should not only agree with it, but celebrate it. And what happens when we don't agree? What happens when we don't fully embrace and celebrate a friend or a loved one's choice? Well, you're told, don't judge me. And I mean, that sounds right, doesn't it? I mean, even Jesus said, don't judge others. He said it right near the end of one of the most famous sermons ever given, the Sermon on the Mount. In this sermon, Jesus talked about everything. He talked about money, relationships, anger, anxiety, and then right near the end, he said, do not judge others. So that's it, right? Case closed. Don't judge, ever. But as I was thinking about judgment, it got me wondering, is it even possible to live with total non-judgment? With total non-judgment of others? And the feeling that I got as I was thinking about this was, maybe it's not. Now, before you judge me, let me explain. What would you say if I asked you if there is anyone in this world, maybe people in your immediate circles, that you would not trust to watch your house while you're out of town? What about watching your pets? What about watching your children? If, like me, you can think of someone, anyone, whom you wouldn't trust to do any of those things, you've passed judgment on them. Which is a problem if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, because as a follower of Jesus, we're to do our best to follow him and to follow his teachings. And if Jesus meant total non-judgment when he said, do not judge others, then we're guilty. And get this, even if you and I were to ignore what Jesus says and simply follow our Western culture's teaching of don't judge me, then we're actually making a judgment that those who judge are wrong, and we're still guilty of judging. So, to answer the question of whether it's even possible not to judge someone, it seems to be no, it's not. And if that's the case, what are we supposed to do with Jesus' words? Do not judge others. So things actually start to make more sense when we realize that when Jesus said, do not judge others, he didn't stop there. He had more to say about it. Here's all of what Jesus said. He said, do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own? Hypocrite. I always read that and think, wow, that's kind of judgmental. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. So, what's all this talk about standards, specks, and logs? Well, in order to really break down what Jesus is saying here, I thought it might be helpful and kind of fun to look at his teachings kind of like an owner's manual of judgment. Now, I'll be honest, I don't usually look at the owner's manual. Instead, I just open up whatever the new toy is and I just let her rip. Except if my new purchase has the potential to cause some damage or harm to me or others around me. Like these javelin darts that I'm hoping to buy for a fun youth group game at some point. What could go wrong? So, let's give our instruction manual for judgment a read. Let's imagine You just ordered the newest model of Judgment off of Amazon using your friend's Amazon Prime account. And it shows up at your front door so fast, like it's actually kind of unbelievable. When it arrives, you rip it open and you think, whoa, this thing could do some damage. So instead of just firing it up, you grab the owner's manual. Here's what it says. Congratulations on your new purchase of Judgment, the attitude that is sweeping the nation. Oh boy, this is going to be awesome. Okay, so and then it says, in order for Judgment to fulfill manufacturer's intended outcomes and to avoid harm, please adhere to the following instructions. Instruction number 1, do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. Or, as it's written in the Message translation, don't pick on people. Jump on their failures, criticize their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. That critical spirit has a way of boomeranging. So the first instruction is pretty straightforward. You know, the way we judge others is the way that we should expect to be judged in return. Instruction number 2, and this one actually comes with a picture. It says, why worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of the speck in your own eye when you can't see past the log in your own? Hypocrite. First get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. So, according to instruction number 2, if we point out the wrongs and the flaws in the lives of others while ignoring our own, our judgment won't accomplish much at all. Instead, we'll probably just cause more damage, probably poking our friends in the eye with this big log that we got coming out of our own. Probably just going to do a lot more harm than good. And given the intensity of the picture Jesus painted, judging hypocritically seems really counterproductive and even damaging. So, after reading our owner's manual on judgment, we can see that Jesus isn't saying, don't judge ever. Instead, he's saying, when you judge, judge like this. Humbly, honestly, out of care for your friend, and gently. Remember, you're pulling a speck out of an eyeball. When we consider how judgment looks when it's used rightly in a helpful way, it seems to me that we need to take great care and consideration about when and how we use it. It's like instead of trying to remove the specks in everybody's eyes with super soakers, maybe it looks more like helping a friend flush a speck out of their eye with a gentle rinse of water. And like we saw with the friend in Jesus' teaching who had the speck removed from his eye, when judgment is used correctly, it can be an extremely valuable tool that can help us see past our blind spots. And if we're honest, we all have blind spots, beliefs and habits that hurt us more than they help us, specks that we would greatly benefit from having removed. Funny little statement that I came up with to help summarize this whole idea of judgment is that judgment can be unsightly, yet gives sight when given rightly. Judgment can be unsightly, yet gives sight when given rightly. Another shameless plug. We have bumper stickers. I'm kidding. We don't. But maybe we should. Oh. Anyway, one of the places that I've seen this judgment thing play out in my own life is as I've recently been trying to learn how to play goalie for ice hockey, where this learning curve has been intense. And it happened at one of the practices I recently went out to where I wasn't having a very good day at all. I was letting in all kinds of shots that I stopped the week before, and I just felt off. So frustrated, I skated over to the bench for a little break, clear my head, get a drink of water. And as I was sitting there, one of the more experienced players skated over. And he said, "How are you feeling today?" And I said, "I feel off." And he said, "Yeah, you look kind of off." Initially, his words stung a little bit, like, I look off? Then he said, "You look like you're not keeping your eye on the puck like you did last week." Try not to think so much and just watch the puck. And he was actually right. It was a great judgment, and things actually started to go better after I followed his advice. And it was a simple judgment, but it helped me see things from the outside that I wasn't seeing on my own. And once I had somebody who had my best in mind and could use their judgment to let me see what they were seeing, I was literally able to see the puck better and play better. Now, this experience that I had with judgment of my goaltending, this was something that was pretty inconsequential to my life. But what about those times that we receive judgment on things that are a little more personal? Our finances, our relationships, our health, our faith. Areas of life where the stakes are higher, and giving and receiving friendly judgment is more difficult. I don't know about you, but personally, those are areas of life where I have experienced resistance to the judgment of others, even to the point of becoming a little defensive. You know, these are the times where it would be super easy for me to play the cultural don't judge me card, which would be too bad. Because in getting defensive and resisting the judgment of a friend, you know, we might actually be missing out on the gift of tremendous personal growth that can happen when a friend humbly, gently, and boldly tells us what they're seeing from the outside. Things that might be hurting us, you know, things, and a friend that's willing to have this conversation that's not the funnest conversation to have. What I've come to learn about myself in times of judgment is that when I start getting defensive towards the judgment of someone I trust, that's probably my cue that I need to let go of my pride and be receptive, because they're probably onto something. You know, it's in these times that I need to stop and think that this is probably worth considering. It's worth me slowing down and taking some time to think it over, even going to God with it in prayer and asking him to help me see. So on the surface, judgment can seem like a bad word. But after exploring what Jesus really said about it, we can see that when done properly, you know, from a trusted friend, from a place of humility with gentleness, you know, it's not just okay to judge. It's actually really useful. It's good. And it might be the most loving thing you can do in some situations. Because when done rightly, judgment can help us see the things that are holding us back from experiencing the best life. And as a Christ follower, the best life that is found in relationship with Jesus. The best life that is found when we take that love of God and pass it on to others. And so let me leave us with a few questions to ponder as we go from the message and go into this week. How well do you do handing out judgment? After looking at our owner's manual, how do we stack up in the judgments we've given out recently? How well do we do receiving judgment? When someone comes and tells us what they're seeing from the outside, what's our initial reaction? Do we, get defensive and try to protect ourselves? Or are we maybe respond with openness and consideration? And whose judgment do you welcome into your life that helps you see? What friends do you have around you? What family members do you trust that are around you? Where does God fit into this whole thing of someone speaking into your life to help you see? So would you pray with me? So Jesus, we just want to thank you so much for your presence here with us this morning, through your Spirit. And as we work through this bad word series and we look at words that kind of make us uncomfortable, that seem bad, God, I thank you that we can slow down, that we can take time to learn more about them and see how they can be really good for us. And as we explore judgment this morning, it's a word that is just awful, it feels like. But as we read this, it's something that's super helpful. And so, God, I ask that you would Help us to see the people in our lives who really care about us and who want to help us see, who want to help us see how we can live a full life in relationship with you. And God, I ask that you help us hear from you, to come to you in prayer, to come to you in the Bible and hear your judgments about life. Hear what you say is right. Hear what you say is good, and be open to receiving those in our lives. So we thank you for all these things, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen.